ambitious and motivated are words that describe you best, then you're on the right place. This is Motivational Radio, friends, from Paris, with your host, Longi Agoha.
Yeah, but don't you think? Because I believe in Africa, we have this community kind of life where we share things together. But when you step into the Western society where individualism comes in, how do you marry both?
You can, because then when you open your mind, because there are other Africans wherever it is you're going to.
Right.
If you feel comfortable in the African community, then reach out to the African community. Do things in the African community. Most of us go to churches. So that is a community. We feel relaxed in churches, in our religious, networks. That is a community. And so the whole idea of living one, you are gaining another one. And I find, because I have friends who go to churches here in Ireland, and I find a lot of them complain that only a few do the work. The others sit. After a while, the people who do the work, the few that do the work, get burned out and refuse to work anymore. And so you lose that network because you are not putting yourself out there. You're not doing your bit. Because if you're not doing your bit, how will the community function? A lot of us are very complacent when it comes to community work if it doesn't benefit us in one form or another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's not, most times we put a lot of monetary value to a lot of things. That's why some people are losing money every day, because they feel they have to buy everything. You don't need to.
Wow. Right. This is more like you're sounding as if you were living about 50 years ago. Really. Because, that was when trade by barter was really on or raging, or at least 100 years ago, when trade by barter was the main thing. Yes. Today, it's really very, very different. And for you to change that mindset, wow, that must be an uphill task.
Yes, it's a lot of work. I get a lot of opposition from people. Because people don't want to tell their secrets. They don't want to tell their issues. Mm-hmm. They don't want the next person to know what they're doing. But then we all forget that we all share the same values, the same uphills, the same, dramas. That we forget that when I say my issue in a community, you're saying yours.
Right. But now, let me come into a little bit of psychology here, because I know one thing that really drives you is the fact that you said from the beginning you had an issue. Mm-hmm. Have you solved the issue now?
Oh yes, I have.
So what is still pushing you then?
That's a good question, because I thought initially it was because of what was happening internally.
Yes.
That's why I got on this path. Mm-hmm. But then I realized that, because after doing the elections, which I didn't get a sit in, but I got elected into the housing sector in the Galway Council, Galway Council here. And I started working with people, and houses, because my first degree is international relations.
Okay.
Has nothing whatsoever to do with housing.
Certainly. And so, very far from it.
And so when I started working in the housing sector here in Ireland, I decided to go back to do architecture. And so the drive came again because I was working with the community. My burning issue was that the planners, the city planners and the city architect kept coming in with blueprints that I couldn't understand during meetings. And I got frustrated because I couldn't understand it. And they were getting away with murder because most of us weren't architects. Uh-huh. So I said, okay, I'm going back to college. So I went back to college and I did the whole architectural thing. I'm actually doing my PhD at the moment. And so I have found that I do things as they affect me. As if I come into a situation whereby I'm affected, I feel other people are affected by the same thing. And so I take up that issue. And so that's what I've been doing over the years. And that's what I will continue to do, because another issue that has affected me in some way or form is the whole idea of African heritage sites. Because with this PhD, I find I'm learning a lot about European heritage sites. I'm learning a lot about American heritage sites. I'm not learning anything about African heritage sites. And so I decided to use that as my doctoral thesis and then teach myself. And what I am finding has made me realize that I need to teach my kids African history, African heritage, because they weren't born. I wasn't born in Africa. My parents are Nigerians.
Yeah.
But I have made it a rule to know what goes on in Africa, especially when it comes to our heritage sites, languages, why our boundaries are being shaped by, what colonial masters made them, when we could use our languages, because Yoruba is being spoken, in the southwest of Nigeria and in Benin Republic and in Togo.
And in Brazil.
And yes, right now I'm focusing on Africa itself.
Okay. All right.
And the boundaries. And why can't we shape our boundaries based on language?
Coming to language, because I happen to be a linguist.
Okay.
Yes, and I studied English and French. And
Wow.
so, yes. So I found out one of the major reasons, or one of the major problems with Africa is the problem of language, especially Nigeria. Nigeria has a problem of language. In fact, I am writing a book, but I have not published it yet. The language divide. Okay.
Yes.
And that's one major issue with that country, because when you look into the Western societies, almost all of them have one single language. Almost all of them. Okay, here they have one major one, and then there are smaller ones, and that major one, everybody speaks it.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I mean, for example, in France, we have many other smaller dialects or languages, but then French is, everybody speaks French in France. Okay, in England, same thing. In America, same thing. In just name it. In Italy, the same.
We have 4 or 5. Linguistic families in Africa.
All right.
Why can't we use that as our main languages?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That we especially, let us, center it to Nigeria, because I have looked at why we have problems in that country, and I know that mainly because of language. Because I remember back late 80s, about just 90, in fact 90, I went to a place called Benin, and while I was living there, when they read the national news in Lagos, when the television station goes back local, they would have to read the local dialects.
Yes.
And these dialects, there are almost 20. Okay? That means the people in the village, if you do not read that local dialects to them, they wouldn't understand what the person in Lagos read. And for me, that's the major problem we have, linguistic problem in that country.
And that's why it's a big issue for me as well. And I think that we're so bogged down with things that are Western. We're not bogged down by traditional history. And I feel that we're losing that. And it's worse, even in Africa, as opposed to we that are abroad,
Oh, yeah.
And I find that, okay, my daughter wanted to write an essay, and she decides to write on the Holocaust, the Jew Holocaust.
Right. Yeah, sure.
And I was so upset. I said, what the hell?
Why did you write about slavery, for example?
No, not even slavery. We have heroes. We have a history before slavery.
Exactly.
Why not write about that? And then she's like, oh no, we don't. I don't know anything about Africa. Nobody teaches us anything about Africa. And then I'm like, all right, she's hit a nerve.
That's right.
And so we start learning about the heroes, before slavery, because history in Africa did not start with slavery. We had history for millennia before slavery. And so we look back, and then we start to understand, what Africa was before colonization, before slavery.
I think I understand what you mean, where you're driving to. You see, the thing, let us look at the positive aspect. I believe today, internet is really going to help Africa a lot.
Yes.
It is going to help Africa, because I remember when I was going to school in Nigeria, I, stumbled into heavy rocks, in the sense that it was very difficult to buy books.
Yes.
Believe that. It was really, really very difficult. In Lagos, there were maybe 2, 3, 4 bookshops in Lagos. And if you go around, you didn't get any of those books you're looking for, you're done for. You can't get anything. At that time, there was no internet.
Yes.
And today, at least you can Google anything, okay? You can Google anything, and that would help a lot of Africans,
exactly.
to really
We're not looking for this history, are we?
No.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure internet is going to help Africa develop intellectually, I guess, because that's one thing that Africa lacks a lot.
Yeah.
The intellectual base of Africa is still very low, very, very low, and that's why we have problems.
But I also think that our intellects are different as well, because there are ways we have learned and there are ways we keep learning that is quite different from the way we learn in the West. Because I do remember on my travels, Brown, Dahomey, and in South Africa, with the Venda tribe in South Africa, that the way they teach building skills, which is done by the women, one generation to the next generation, it's a different way. And I find that as we pass down knowledge to our younger generation, we do it by them doing, which is quite different in the West, where we study a lot of books, we don't do it.
And we learn by doing.
And so I understand why we have so many graduates coming out and having no clue what is going on in the work environment, because they've spent their whole time in books, not actually doing.
Let me give you a very simple experience. While I was studying, because the university I was studying, I went for a degree course in English. And while we were studying, I went ahead and did 1 year teaching, practical teaching, to be a teacher. And at the end, some of my mates were telling me, hey, it's like I didn't do anything. They were finding it difficult to know exactly what to do with their degree in English.
Exactly.
And for me, I was not feeling the same, because I since I went for a practical teaching program, I knew where I was going to. You see the difference between doing and not doing, just reading books. I think that's one major problem we have, especially in Africa as well, where we read a lot, but the practical aspect is not there, and that when the person comes out, it looks as if he didn't read anything.
I know, it's crazy. And it's the same thing, with something as practical as building, because in all my courses here in Ireland, I was never on the site. So if I had not taken myself out of Ireland and gone to Belgium or gone to Spain or gone to all these other countries to be on the site, I don't think I'll know what a building site feels like after graduating.
So let's go back to debt elimination. I mean, how would you advise a layman on the street to reduce, at least to eliminate debt or reduce it?
Well, I would say find, sort out your incomes, know how much is coming in. When you know how much is coming in, then sit down, organize, and figure out what's going out, what the lifestyle is, what your network is, because you can utilize your network as well. And then figure out what credit is out, what credit are you paying for, what are you lagging behind on, and then sort of, cut down consistently. If it means writing letters to say, okay, fine, this is what I can afford to do every week or every month or every, bi-weekly, then do that. Because most times when creditors come in looking for money, it's because there's no structure in place. So they feel they need to come in with all arms and guns and blazing, trying to get that money. And that frustrates people that are on the receiving end. And so what they do when they're going through this is to lock themselves up and not open doors and not pick up calls, don't answer letters. So the best thing I always tell every client I work with is write a letter. Tell them, this is what I can afford. If they are still shouting and screaming, oh no, that's too little, start sending that money. From the moment you write that letter, start keeping to that structure. Eventually they will back down, because now they know you're keeping to a program.
Right.
And there's nothing better. No creditor wants to see anybody that's inconsistent with the structure they themselves put in place. So keep at it. And so that's why I introduced the 12-month program, whereby I hold hands and make sure that people actually keep to that structure. And then eventually, after a few weeks into, 6 months, they realize, oh my God, that is reducing. Because when we use money for other things that is meant for something else, we lose track. And so the debt increases again. So
don't you think this is a part of discipline?
It is a part of discipline. And so I know that not everyone has that. So that's why I do the holding of hands for 12 months. That way, when you're used to a routine, you follow it. And when you see results from that same routine, you tend to follow it. And if you do not go back to get another credit, I'm sure the person is fine after a year, which I find usually if they keep at it and if I follow them through it as well.
Are you a believer?
Yes, I am.
If you continue like this, you're going to get a sainthood.
Okay, I didn't understand that that's what you meant. I've gone beyond religion now. I'm more of a spiritualist. I believe more in the positive affirmation of the universe. It's gone beyond religion for me.
Anyway, I am not surprised. You see, the thing is, the more you read, the more you question certain things.
Exactly.
All right. So I've come to that state as well. So I understand what you mean.
Okay, so that's good.
I understand what you mean.
I know I usually get this weird looks from people when they're like, you don't go to church? I'm thinking, I believe things, you need to be outside four walls because nature itself is God. People around you is God. If you are made in God's image, then why do I need to go into four walls to look for him when he's out here?
I think this is the best thing you've said today. No, really, because this is something I preach all the time. Okay. I mean, we don't need to go. We really don't need to go to church to look for God. He is everywhere. In fact, because in the Bible it said He created human beings, in His own image. Exactly. So when you look at your fellow human being and you do him bad, and then you go into the church, you look for it's crazy, isn't it?
Of that now.
I think we're swimming in the same direction, I guess. Yeah, I think the more you know, the less you want to delve into such things,
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. That's why they say ignorance is disease, it's not very good. Because when you don't know, you walk into the whole thing wholeheartedly and all that, and then it's not very good. No, really, it's not very good. But then and that's why a lot of people have problems, because of the fact that they don't know, they have never come to this level of consciousness, and then they don't question anything, and then everything, they swallow everything, which is not very good. So both of us will have sainthood then. This is great. So the whole thing is, trying to eliminate debt by all means, with the fact that you have to hold hands, and holding hand means monitoring the person, making sure that he obeys the rules and regulations in order to avoid maybe falling back. And wow. So what's the ultimate aim? What where are you taking it to? What's the height?
For now, I have no height. I go where the passion goes. That's just it. Whatever sparks me, that's where I go. So I don't even know how I got into the whole writing the book and then doing the whole budget thing. Because I always thought I would write a book on architecture. But then when I started working with families and working, with their financials and, working with their lifestyle and what ticks them, I find myself moving towards this direction. So, and I find that they're all intertwined. So no matter what I do, it's still linked to what I do. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. And that leads me to say that, because I always say that the best thing that can happen to anybody is when he or she discovers exactly what he or she came to this world to do. Have you done that?
I think I'm doing it.
That's why I am not surprised. I am not, because I know that really what you came to this world to do is what you're doing at the moment.
Yes.
I'm sure architecture is not in the picture.
No, it is actually. I just find that everything is intertwined because I deal with low income families as well, and I help them get into homes. I build
all right, okay,
as well.
Okay, so that's the link.
Still linked to the
To
whole
people.
course.
I think you are a people's person, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm more of a person that if I come home, I don't interact. I stay by myself.
It's very funny. It's very funny. We have lots of things in common because because I know that I do a lot of, teaching and talking and all the rest. And when you see me in the class, you would never believe when you see me in the class and when you see me at home, they are two different human beings.
Exactly. So my husband is always like, wow, you've been at home for 2 weeks. You haven't stepped outside.
Right.
Anything. And I'm thinking, well, I do everything all the time. And so when I come home, it's my little
refuge.
Yes. And I feel comfortable in it. And I feel it's the time to spend with my family because they hardly ever see me. I'm always gone. So each time I'm home, I'm home.
100%.
100%.
So I'm not disturbing you now.
No, they're in school and at work.
Okay, good. Okay.
But when they're home and when I'm home with them.
Right.
So, yeah.
So you know how to divide yourself.
Well, I hope I can. I hope I'm doing good.
That's good. That's wonderful. Well, you are one of a kind. No, really. Really, you're one of a kind. Now, let's wind it out here today. Wow. Great. It's been lovely speaking with you. Really. I'm very, very happy to have talked to you for 1 hour. You see, it's almost like 5 minutes for me.
To have Longi Agoha speak at your organization's workshops, seminars, at your church or your school's graduation ceremonies, for keynote address, public speaking events, and more, please contact him on +2348 1047 063 1930 or +3360 9201 972. Alternatively, you can also log on to his website www.agohalongi.com and fill out the contact form.